One of the things that we hear a lot about is emotional connection and distance in a relationship. So, working off of the concept of the construct that you just laid out, how would you like describe or talk about what creates emotional connection and what tends to like create distance in a relationship?
I think the foundation of it all is empathy, meaning for me to be able to feel into you and you into me. If I can feel what you're feeling, maybe not the same way or as strongly, but it's more than just saying, oh, you're having a bad day. Okay. It's like me getting in there with you. If you're in the dark cave and you're in a bad mood, for me to sort of hop into the cave, that doesn't mean I live there with you, but I can get in there and be like, oh yeah, it really does kind of stink in here. And it is dark, and I get that. And knowing that you have somebody who will be there for you in that way, and that you can be there for them, that kind of empathy leads to security, connection, closeness. Like, hey, we're in this together. And I think that makes a big difference for people.
So, how do trust and vulnerability like factor in to building this type of empathic or empathically based connection between two people?
Vulnerability means I'm willing to share with you what's inside, even the stuff that maybe I'm not so proud of, or maybe I don't tell everybody. And that's certainly not something that people do right off the bat. It's like, hello, nice to meet you. Would you like to borrow my car keys? Most people don't do that. There's a sense of self protection and trust that has to be built up. And that's normal. If I tell you something and you take me seriously and you treat me with respect and you care about what I'm saying, I develop trust in you. And then I can share with you the harder things, the deeper things, the scarier things. And the more we lean into each other like that, the more we feel that connection, the more that we feel that we're supported and that we are on the same team. And that allows us that vulnerability and that trust, which gets us to where we want to go. So the first thing I say in the book, and I go to town on this, is just don't deal with it in the moment, right? Conflict is so much worse in the moment of anger. When something is bothering you, when you're irritated or mad or hurt, in those moments, our emotions are so jacked up that everything becomes worse. And often, if you wait a day or two, you can do that much better. I think so many relationships would be so much better off if people could just wait. A lot of people I see are mature people, you know, decent at communication. I've worked with communications majors and specialists and all kinds of things who seem to have a communication problem in their relationship. And I think if people would just chill out, like wait a little while, it doesn't mean like in the moment, okay, I'm calm now, let's go. It means you take some time sitting with it. It's uncomfortable, but you come back a little later when you're ready. That conversation goes so much better already off the bat. And if you want, we can dig more into what the rest of the conversation looks like. But I think that's the first place is let's wait. Let's wait a little bit.
There's something about this intimate partner relationship that those skills sometimes seem so difficult to grasp. What is it about these relationships that have people not at their best?
It feels so urgent. This is, for most people, the most important relationship in their lives. And when it's going wrong, it feels lousy. Like, I get that. I've worked with so many people who really struggle to wait and deal with it later when they're upset or when their partner's upset at them. It's super uncomfortable. And I totally relate to that. When I'm mad at my partner, my wife, I really want to tell her in that moment why she's so wrong. I must be right. I must resolve the situation by being right. And it feels urgent. And I totally get that impulse. And if she's mad at me, I want to explain to her why she's wrong for being mad at me, and that's incorrect, and I'm right, and and make this problem go away because it feels so uncomfortable. Um, but it's rarely an emergency, and it's an emergency because there's a lot of blood around. But short of that, it can wait. And if we can learn to tolerate that discomfort, tolerate the distress for a little bit longer, we get much better outcomes. The conversation goes much more smoothly if I'm a little calm and you're a little calm and we have some distance from whatever the provocation was. I'm sure you've seen that with your couples as well.
Talking about trying to build vulnerable, empathically based connections between people. And I've encountered that many of the men that I work with have not been socialized to do this. It feels weak. It feels uncomfortable. They struggle to open themselves up. They struggle to really get in there with a partner, like you said. So I'm wondering if you've encountered this, and if so, how do you approach this, and how do you educate the men that you work with about the importance and value of this?
Men are not used to expressing their emotions and being introspective like that. And yeah, we sort of culturally beat it out of them, right? When you're on the schoolyard, if you fall down and you scrape your knee and you cry, it's like a walk it off, right? Walk it off, no big deal. Crying for men is a huge thing. It's like there's all these cultural stigmas around it. And so basically, the emotions that men are allowed to have are angry and horny, if you can call that one an emotion, right? But those are things that men are expected to feel. But everything else, it's looked down on. And so by the time that we are, hitting adolescence, we already know that's not something that you can do. And reversing that process can be very difficult. I think a lot of men recognize on some level that they do have some emotions in there that need addressing, that their partner wants to hear it from them, and try to move in that direction to some extent. But some men either do not want to, and that is certainly even more true in various cultures. Sort of different ethnic groups have even stronger taboos on sharing emotions, like in East Asian cultures. Very formalistic, very structured that way. And so helping them to get to that place is challenging. If I have a man who wants to connect with his partner, or his partner wants to connect with him and he's not sure what he's doing wrong, I would probably send them to individual counseling to sort of crack that open. Because doing that work with somebody while we're in couples counseling can a little bit muddy the waters, because we have to sort of get into their own, deeper stuff and history and whatnot. Not everybody wants to do that, but if somebody is looking to get in touch with what's going on underneath the surface and to connect with their partner on a deeper level, then, doing a little deeper work to get in there, crack it open and see what's going on inside can be really helpful. So that is part one of the answer to your largest question. Did you want to touch on anything there, or?
No. Let's keep rolling.
All right. Moving to part two was, responding to their partner's emotions. So men, and I'm not sure if this is more cultural or more innate, but that's an interesting debate for another time. Men want to solve problems. If a woman comes and says, "Hey, I got this problem," her husband will say, "Oh, I'll fix it for you this way, that way, this way. Hey, why don't you try this? Do you try that?" And the woman often gets really irritated, and he's like, "Well, I don't understand. I'm just trying to help you. I'm just trying to solve the problem." And it can drive the wives crazy. And so one thing I help men to recognize, it's usually men. It also goes in the other direction, but for sure, largely, it's men doing this to women. I tell the men, she doesn't want your solution. And he often looks a little baffled, like, "What do you mean? She said she has a problem. I should solve it. I have a solution." I say, no, she wants you to hear her out and care about her problem. And then we look at his wife or his girlfriend or whatever, and she is nodding her head. "Yeah, could you get him to shut up already?" And he's like, but I want to help you. It's like, yeah, that's just not the help she's looking for. I got to tell you, your wife is a smart person. She has some ideas for solutions. She's got a headache. She knows she can take a Tylenol. She doesn't need you to tell her, "Hey, have you tried Tylenol?" What she wants you to say is, "Oh, that stings. I'm so sorry. I have a headache. Ah, is that because your boss was yelling again? Oh, it's the worst." That is empathy, right? That's what I said is at the heart of everything. If you show her that you care by showing her that what she's saying matters to you, that is far more valuable to her than a solution. If she wants a solution, she'll say, "Hey, do you have any ideas for a solution?" If she doesn't, do not give her a solution.
Now, I want to move over into the world of physical intimacy and ask your perspective on the crossroads between the world that you are describing, one which is, again, empathic connection based. We'll call it an emotionally safe and connected world. And I want to hear your perspective on whether that is a fundamental or critical piece in helping couples establish the kind of physical intimacy that they want to be.
Yeah, this is an even tougher place to go. As vulnerable as emotions can be, talking about our personal intimacy is so vulnerable and scary. And I think this goes both ways. I mean, for someone to say, here's what I like, here's my preferences, here's what feels good, it's it's just very tender. It's very vulnerable and scary, and we don't have a lot of practice in it. As much as society these days is so sexualized, it's all jokes and fluff and innuendos. But to actually say, "Hey, here's me," it's very very tender stuff. And so, learning to be empathic and to slow down your communication. The book is all about doing that in general in relationships, but we touch a little bit on the intimate side of things. Like, that's very hard, but the same principles will apply. Let me hear you out. Let me see what you want. Let me empathize before finding a solution.
In your experience, do you see a correlation between couples that are experiencing emotional conflict or distance or struggling to really create that emotional connection that you're describing and sexual function challenges in one or both partners?
It's interesting. I don't know if that was a leading question where the assumed answer was yes, but my answer is no. I mean, certainly it can affect it. If people are feeling distant and aren't able to communicate, that can negatively affect their sexual functioning. But I have had couples where they're fighting regularly and at each other's throats, but then they hop into bed and they're okay. And I've had couples that are, friendly and don't fight very much, and yet the only thing they're trying to figure out is why it's not working in the bedroom. And so while there can be a correlation, I don't think it's at all necessary. For people, it could be separate things. I mean, some people really can't feel sexual if they're not feeling connected. And some people are so physically in tune that way that they're okay, as long as we're not hating each other. And people who fight a lot don't necessarily hate each other. They can go ahead and have this part of the relationship work pretty well. I employ these same communication principles in my work with couples, meaning I'm not going to assume what you want or need and give you a solution. I'm going to offer empathy. I'm going to hear where you're at. I'm going to listen first, like, oh, you guys have this problem, but not that problem. Oh, wow. Yeah, I hear how that's rough. Let's see what we can do. Let's see where we can move with that, rather than assuming I have a prepackaged solution. Oh, you have, low libido issues. Great. Here's your solution. I don't think that works. Right? I mean, in the same way that I recommend everyone, treat their partner as an individual. You are not like me. Let me hear where you're at. I'll do that with all my clients.
A 60-year-old male in a heterosexual relationship is pre-diabetic and has started to experience erection challenges. And he's not talking to his partner about it, but the frequency of engagements and encounters is decreasing, is kind of avoiding or rebuffing, her efforts to reach for him, but they don't really talk about it, and they're both kind of distressed. And let's say you've been working with them for 3 months on other things, and then like you're starting to get a little bit of a hint, or somebody drops a line, like we haven't been having sex. A situation like that, where again, setting it up so that the erectile dysfunction has a real steep physiological element to it, right? And the couple is struggling to communicate or adjust to like the new reality or whatever's unfolding, and they're like struggling to talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, like we noted, it's a very tough thing to talk about. And I think that the principles that I've touched on here and that I expand on in the book are really valuable for this, to be able to start just by saying, hey, this is hard to talk about, and I'm really nervous, and here's how I'm feeling about it, and to have her reflect back to him, just understand where he's at. Like, I can understand talking about, your sexual functioning is hard for you and it's embarrassing and all these things, and just to connect around what the conversation will be like. And so now we're working together, trying to manage a difficult conversation, a difficult situation. And then he can talk about how, he's been embarrassed and has been, sort of turning away because he feels bad about this, or whether it's an issue of, mortality or losing manliness or whatever it's going to be, whatever the flavor is for him of this distress that he's experiencing, to be able to share that in a non-judgmental place, in a non-solution oriented conversation, just like, hey, here's where I'm at. We'll worry about the solution later. And again, this is a big principle that I put down in the book, again, before I start even talking about the mechanics of it, is there's got to be a conversation first where you explore the problem before you have a conversation where you try to resolve the problem. those should not be the same conversation. What we're going to do about this issue that we're having is a very different discussion than here's how I'm feeling about it. Here's all the thoughts I have about it. I'd like to hear how you see it and all those things. And if we can help this couple have those conversations about their feelings about what's going on in their marriage and their sex life, then from there, that's a springboard to talk about solutions in a way that will work. But until we've understood the problem, talking about solutions doesn't help much. If you don't understand the problem, you can't solve it. It's so obvious when you think about it like that, but we always try to do that and run in and be like, oh, let's try to get rid of this problem as soon as possible. But it's much more effective. Let's talk about all our feelings and all our concerns and all our worries on both sides. And then when I understand your concerns and you understand my concerns, and we both feel like the other person gets it and cares about it, that puts us in a much better place to come up with a solution that will stick.
Where is the value? Like, what is the point in us just kind of marinating in what isn't working? Why are we not just immediately like working towards the solution? Okay. How would you like best answer that question?
There's a lot of angles on this. The pithy response is this: has it been working for you? Right? People who are in my office have been through a cycle several times. It wasn't like the first time they had an argument, they came and talked to me. They've tried solutions and they didn't work. And the reason because they didn't work is because you don't understand what the problem is. The problem is not that, we're having sex less than usual. The problem is that you feel bad about your vitality as a man. And she feels less attractive because for some reason we're not having sex. Is it because I'm older? And she feels lonely because she thought that she had a partner who was there for her, and he feels embarrassed. And it runs deeper and deeper. There's all these parts of the problem. And so if we stop with, well, we're not having sex, we should do it more, and we aim for a solution for that, we haven't touched on all the stuff below it. So yes, maybe you'll get something that works temporarily and the frequency goes back up. But what happens if it goes back down again? Or what happens if the pills don't work for you? Or what happens if we just squash her question like, well, wait a second, am I less attractive and now he needs pills to be able to have sex with me? Like, that stays there. And if we don't open that up, the problems will keep coming. So to just run for a solution without fully understanding the problem. I mean, you wouldn't do that in a business setting. You know what? Sales are dropping. Let's throw out more ads. Like, no, you do an exploration. Like, what is the problem? Where are our sales dropping? What does the market need? Et cetera, et cetera. You look into it. Now, there's a lot less personal vulnerability there, so it's easy. But if you're going to look for a solution, you better know what the problem is better than you do right now. But there's a lot of, if you don't want to do the hard work, that's fine. You will have a less vital relationship. I mean, things that are important take work, right? People don't build giant businesses just sort of floating along. It takes hours and time and sweat. The same thing with a relationship. Yes, it's hard and uncomfortable. Yes, you could probably get away in many cases without getting into the deeper stuff. But, it'll come back to bite you eventually because you won't have the depth and the connection that you're looking for.
Okay. If there was like one or two like surprising takeaways that you have learned over the years of working with couples that you think it's important that anybody in a relationship should know, what might that be?
I don't know if it's surprising necessarily, but I'm just going to go back to what I said before. I say this in the book. If there's one thing you take from the book, let it be this: wait until later. None of these things are urgent, whether it's about intimate stuff or about general relationship stuff. There's a lot of pain. Human beings are emotional creatures. We get angry, we get hurt. It doesn't have to be done now. If you can wait until later, you could probably have a better conversation and you can learn better skills to have that conversation. But no skills are going to work well when you're in fight or flight mode. Wait until later. I think that's the most critical thing people need to start with. And from there, developing better communication skills goes much better.